Welcome back to another episode of Housing Solutions of New York's podcast, One Step Away, creating a safe space to transform lives one step at a time. I am your host, Dr. Zalex Rivera, also known as Dr. X. I'm excited about this episode mainly because y'all finally get to see my face. We're working on trying to be in person so you can see the people that I'm talking to. So we're going to have a good time today. This episode, I want to focus more on housing, particularly around New York City's most recent themes around affordable housing as well as supportive housing, and supportive housing being a new and big push within New York City. The beauty of this is Housing Solutions of New York back in July of 2025, we did a very drastic leap into supportive housing where we were able to secure more than 200 permanent supportive housing units throughout New York City. So I'm gonna stop there because I'm gonna need an applause. Y'all gonna wait for my applause. But we was excited to enter into the supportive housing space with more than 200 units, creating a very large supportive housing portfolio. And at that time, I was able to do a couple changes. So I'm going to have a great conversation today with two of my leading ladies on the side of supportive housing, on the Create Supportive Housing portfolio. The first one is Lisa Bailey. She is the Assistant Director of the Create Supportive Housing program. I'm excited to have her. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Dr. X.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Don't be shy. We're going to have a good time, okay? Okay. And then I have Vanessa Santiago, who was promoted over from our DHS portfolio to be the inaugural site director or program director for the Create Supportive Housing. Vanessa?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey.
Hey, Dr. Rivera.
There we go. I need to loosen up. I need people. We're a podcast. We're at work, but we're not at work. But we're going to have a good time. How y'all feeling?
Good.
I'm good, Dr. Rivera.
All right.
You I like to be at the back end of everything. I don't like to be at the front line, but you're always pushing me.
Here we go. That's right. Because here at HSNY Program Division, I push people to their greatest potential. Want to give some insight real fast. Like HSNY, we launched this podcast. We've had some really great speakers on. We've had some really great context and details. But the purpose of this podcast is to talk about, one, the work that you guys do, the stellar work that you guys do. And even before you were here at HSNY, we could talk about previous work because the both of you together have double-digit experience, right? Double-digit experience in this field of work, but also to shed light on our tenants, right? Shed light on our tenant stories and how supportive housing is as a whole. So try to give a deeper understanding of how things are in fact going. I want to pause here so you guys can introduce yourselves. Now, Santiago is used to this, but now since I got two of you, I'm gonna do it on purpose, right? So I'm gonna start with Santiago because she knows Bailey, so you can be prepared. So Santiago, I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to tell the audience how long you've been both in the field of human services, but also how long you've been with HSNY, a little bit of your background, and a fun fact. Same for you, Bailey. You got time while she flushes it out, okay?
So, good afternoon, everyone. I am Vanessa Santiago, the Director of Supportive Housing. I've worked in the field of social service for 24 years come in October. I was at the DHS side for all of these years. Started off as a case manager and worked myself up to director. I have been working for Housing Solutions of New York for 9 years come August. A fun fact of mine is that one, I'm going to give you two. One, I wanted to be a parole officer, and that's why I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And two, no one knows that I was a double Dutch queen when I was in high school. But I don't think I could play double Dutch anymore, but I was at one time.
No double Dutch for you because no workers comp. Y'all know my motto, right? We eat oranges and there's no workers comp. But me and you always laugh about that parole story. But
Yeah.
I won't tell the audience today why you didn't become a parole officer. I will tell them that I'm grateful that you didn't, because now we've had the pleasure of working together for some time now. Lisa, talk to me. Tell me about yourself, background, all that good stuff.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Bailey. I have been working in the social service field for over 15 years. Prior to that, I worked in the business field, import export. Um, a fun fact about me is growing up, I thought that I would be a beauty queen.
Like pageant beauty queen, or you just
Yes, yeah.
from young you wanted to be a pageant queen.
Well, yeah, my dad used to always tell me, "You're beautiful. You're a princess." So I thought I was gonna be a beauty queen.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, Lisa, since I got you, let's jump in. Let's flow with how we're gonna go today. How would you describe supportive housing to someone who's hearing it for the first time?
I would say because sometimes people misconstrue supportive housing, especially coming from a shelter because they've been confined. They have to check in and, sign in. It's really not their home. So I would describe it as your own place. You'll be living on your own, but you'll have the support that you need, because sometimes people need support. And I would let them know what kind of support we would give them, with doctors, mental health, with their children, medical appointments, and just let them know that we're here for them. And supportive housing is a good place to be when you are leaving the shelter system. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah, that's a good point you make, that a person literally has to transition from, and everybody probably listening knows these labels. They go from technically being a client, right, to now being a tenant, right? The main difference is that unlike shelter, you are a paying tenant, right? So you pay
Yes.
rent. We teach them budgeting, all that kind of stuff, But it's a little bit more contextual than that. So Santiago, talk to me about, because you were on the other side for a long time, and you
Mm-hmm.
were placing people into supportive housing until I magically went to your older site and said, hey, you're coming with me to supportive housing. So tell me from your experience the difference between shelter and supportive housing, or maybe even some of the similarities that you're seeing
Yeah.
between clients and tenants.
So supportive housing, right, is cost-effective, affordable housing, right? It's for individuals that have their own apartment. They have their lease, they have tenant rights, right? And then they become part of the community, but also with the support and guidance of staff. In shelter, individuals, and me working at the DHS side, some of them didn't. Once you told them about supportive housing, they was not interested, because they felt like supportive housing was part of, or it is like the shelter system, or it's like a treatment center for individuals who are addiction or in rehab for alcohol abuse, right? So they was like, no way, I don't want to go to supportive housing. But once we told them what supportive housing is, it's your own apartment with additional support, because people that transition out of shelter don't get that additional support when they go into permanent housing on their own. And that's how some of them end up coming back to shelter, because they didn't have the guidance or the support.
Well, that's fair. The other thing is sometimes we as adults shy away from support, right? We can talk about that a little bit too. Once we turn 18, everybody's grown and everybody know everything until you try to pay rent every month and you realize how fast the first comes. The first is the fastest date that suddenly comes every time, as soon as you become a paying tenant in New York City. And I'm gonna throw this to both of y'all. But what do you think makes our supportive housing program different than other programs?
HSNY and the staff that we have are dedicated social service staff, right? They work with these individuals, right? They don't criticize them. They don't label them, right? Because a lot of these individuals that come out of shelter feel like they're just a number. They just, you know, individual who was homeless and they came across all these failures in life, but that's not the case. We have dedicated social service who walks them through voluntary services so they don't feel the pressure into getting these services or having to enroll in these services. And they walk them through it. They set these individuals set their own goals on what they want to look for in the future.
That's fair. Bailey, what's been your experience with them as well, or your team? Because you oversee in the breakdown. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the breakdown in the two is like, so Santiago is the program director. I got her doing a whole bunch of committee meetings and stuff, and she, you know, mix and mingle. But then you are sitting with them, right? You're talking about home visits and you're
Yes.
expressing. So talk to me about like how that viewpoint is from your point of view as their supervisor.
Well, I've been their supervisor, most of them for a long time, because a lot of them had been with the agency prior at Harlem United, and they came over with me. So we are a tight-knit team, and we work together. But what's important and what I find from my staff is that they go the extra mile. So, you know, we have deliverables, but they do more than deliverables. They go to the doctors with them if they need to. They pick them up from the hospital. They go get their medicine. You know, if they need escorting to any other social service agency, they are willing to do it. Some of my staff even will go and check up on the client on the Saturday. We work Monday through Friday. So they are a dedicated team, and they care about the tenants that we serve. They're not a number. We don't judge them. The clients are resilient, but they definitely need our support, and we're there to support them 100%. So we're not a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. We do what we need to do for the clients.
That's a good point you made there too, in regards to like going the extra mile. But all of us on this call can also talk about how going the extra mile can also be very exhausting. It's nothing against the extra mile, right? Y'all see how their heads started shaking? It's not about going the extra mile. The extra mile is the, I want to say it is the definition of passion when somebody is properly aligned with a position that they feel that they were supposed to be doing or that they enjoy doing, right? A lot of times in human services or social services, people always say that, you know, when you do a job that you love and that you're passionate about, then it never feels like work. But on the back end of that, all of us are humans, right? Even when you punch out, even when you're doing an extra mile, you still got a cousin on your phone bothering you, or aunt or sister, or, you know, or some type of family drama. How do y'all deal with, how do you supervise, and this could be for both of you, how do you supervise a team, or like what signs do you pick up on for the workers that are dealing with trying to help another adult navigate life? And or sometimes our staff don't live independently, right? Let's call a spade a spade. Some of our staff may live at home still too, and so they're teaching life skills to some degree to people, or supporting a daily living with people that they don't do 100% themselves. So how do you navigate that as their supervisors?
Well, that's why I keep an open door policy, and I talk with my staff on a regular basis, not just during supervision, not just during our monthly meetings. And I'll say to them, you know, you need to take a mental health day, especially when I know that they've been dealing with a crisis with a client that's been going on for quite some time. I say, take a PTO day. You need a mental health day. You need to check on yourself. Or everybody needs a therapist, you know. Just because we give to the clients, we need to talk to somebody too. So, you know, I encourage therapy.
Agreed. I was waiting for Santiago. Santiago
Yes,
is one of
and
my direct reports that I always have to tell her to take a PTO day. She looks at me and she's like, I don't want to, and I don't want to. It was to a point recently that I almost had to tell her, I'm going to block your phone if you don't take the PTO day, which shows that she's such a good worker, but still, got to teach balance. But what do you do, Santiago, with your team? Let me hear this, because you
So
don't
it's
follow
the
it.
same thing, and I do want to share, like I have open communication with them, and I want them to feel as comfortable telling me, even if it's a personal issue, because unfortunately, we do have staff members that is probably going through the same thing, right? They can afford, rent market rent nowadays because it's expensive. So they're going through their own struggles. However, with our team, they do know how to separate the both. They know that
Good.
they cannot bring their personal issues or matters into what they do, but we also encourage them take a day off, mental health, because it's not just that. These individuals that they are assisting also have issues and end up either passing away, and that alone can take a toll on a staff member who've been working with these individuals for a long period of time.
Yes, very true. Um, so, how do you think supportive housing aligns with HSNY's mission? Most recently, HSNY, we went through a rebrand. We've been constantly, for the last 2.5 years, pushing on the program side a level of excellence without excuses. But how do you think it aligns, right? It was a big leap for us back in July. We absorbed a large and dedicated staff team from another provider. And we had to hit the ground running. There was no prep time, right? It was like, hey, let's go. But how do you think it aligns with our mission of ending homelessness?
Supportive housing is a means of ending homelessness because it's affordable housing, right? So ending homelessness, that's it, supportive housing. Individuals who go into supportive housing do not have to worry about being evicted or going into the streets. They don't have to
Fair.
worry about having to go back into the shelter system where they are getting re-trauma from their past experience from coming out of shelter. Now they have to go back into shelter. So it's affordable because with supportive housing, it goes according to your income. So if you don't have income, specifically for our programs, then you have a zero portion.
Well,
Oh, that's nice.
I think that it aligns because I always felt like an agency should have shelters and have supportive housings because it kind of funnels right into supportive housing if you meet the criteria for supportive housing from shelters. And you get to see both sides. So I think it really aligns with HSNY.
Let's get into some of the nitty gritty. Santiago, you mentioned the thing about supportive housing following the fair market value, right? A lot of people don't know the fair market value is something that is equated from the state level, but also the federal level. However, it usually does not match nowhere near the actual cost of living in said borough, city, and state. So both of you can speak to how that has an impact, or maybe it doesn't have an impact on the clientele or the referral system as it relates to either the fair market value versus the cost of living. What are your thoughts on that in New York City?
I think that it does have an impact because sometimes it's hard for the agency to even lease up apartments when we have to go by the fair market value guidelines. When apartments are $3,000 and $4,000 and the fair market value might be $2,500, so it's a challenge to sometimes lease up decent apartments to house people in supportive housing, and that could be a problem. That we might not have enough supportive housing to go around to house people.
And
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
a
there
good
is a
point.
need for supportive housing because these individuals, if it wasn't for fair market rent for what we're getting from the funders, then who could actually afford affordable housing? Like Housing Connect, let's use that for example. Those rents are expensive. Like I can't even afford that and I work full time. So
Yeah.
imagine any individual coming out from the shelter system or even those who want to transition out of supportive housing because there are individuals who don't no longer need the support and they want to go out on their own. Unless they exit supportive housing with a program, it's going to be difficult for them to maintain that rent unless they have a very good paying job.
Exactly. So that's a lot of the catch 22s and just some of the bureaucracies that we talk about a lot. And we talked about them in other podcast episodes. But like our minimum wage in New York City, New York State is significantly, almost sometimes 2 or 3 times higher than other cities and states. And so, when we have clients who come over here into our system and then they're making minimum wage, if they make minimum wage plus 10 more cents, they now are no longer eligible for food stamps and no longer eligible for this level of housing. And it's very hard in shelter. And then y'all can tell me about supportive housing. It's hard in shelter to convince people to be motivated, right? Like, get a job, get out of here, find your own apartment, pay your own bills. You saw how I did that eye roll? Like, who wants to pay their own bills? Pay your own bills. When as soon as you do better for yourself, there are system breakdowns that take place. And I'm going to pivot this to Bailey, because you mentioned the word decent apartment, right? Yes. Because even that's hard to find, because if you do find a fair market value apartment, you are in, for better choice of words, the hood, right? You are legit smack dab in the hood. So talk to me about slumlords, because that's a major topic for our current mayor. Slum landlords, and what decent is, or what do you think, by bare minimum we think is decent?
Well, for me, decent is a working stove and a working refrigerator, running water, hot and cold, heat, no leaks in their apartments, no holes for vermin to get into. Can't really talk about locations, because if you find a decent unit in the hood, you need to take it, So for me, it's the bare necessities. And dealing, me and Santiago, we are dealing with a lot of slumlords that are not addressing landlord issues that need to be addressed. And people without stoves for 3 months, without a working refrigerator for 6 months, that's absurd. Like, I take it personal, because I feel like they should be able to live like we live. You should have a working stove. You should have working refrigerator. Just because they are in supportive housing, it should not define who they are. They deserve to be able to live comfortably. So it's a lot of slumlords, and I think that they do this because they know that this is supportive housing, and these people, where they going to go, what they going to do? They can't do nothing. So.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So Santiago, talk to me about how do y'all as managers, you can jump in after that, Lisa, how do y'all balance, I don't want to call it balance, I don't like the word balance, how do you not take it personal? Because, for me, and Santiago can attest to this, Bailey, you haven't seen me in action just yet. I get really, what's the word I want to use? I get really assertive, right? When clients' lives and their ability to have decency, respect, integrity as a human, right? Because we are all one paycheck away or one step away from being homeless, right? And so with that, being that I'm in this current position today, I need to be able to give that. But how do you balance checking yourself, right? Because I know sometimes you probably want to meet a landlord outside, right? No? Maybe?
Yeah. Me and Santiago, we go in our little meeting room, and we we talk to one another, because sometimes it's like it's overwhelming.
It's unheard of, right?
Yeah,
it's unbelievable that you think a person should live like this.
Yeah, I have to check myself for what I want to say. So, I go and talk to her, and we could talk out freely about how we feeling.
Because, although these are individuals who are tenants, who are paying rent, living in supportive housing, this could be a family member, right? This could be you, God forbid, right? You don't want yourself living in a situation, or your mother, or your child, or anyone in your family member living with no heat or hot water, especially in these conditions now in the middle of winter, right? With
or especially in the fact that we're not a third world country. We are not a third world country, right? And so, So
it's hard not to take it personal when it comes to situations like this. But of course, we always have to remain professional, even when we talk to landlords and brokers or, landlords or management office. But it's hard. And when it comes to situations, we have to prioritize also, like, which one should we cater first? Which one should we target first? Which client or tenant needs the most intensive work, or needs the heat and hot water, or needs the refrigerator, or needs the stove, because these individuals are in medication, they need refrigerator. These individuals have medical issues, and maybe they need to cook a certain food, so they need their stove and they need their oven. So it isn't fair for them to be without a working stove for months. It's just not fair.
That is fair. Well, that's fair to say. That's not fair for them to live that way. And so being able to juggle yourself as well as your team, right? Because your staff go into apartments and they do home visits and they see the fact that a person may have a stove that's not working and now they got to cook for their family on 2 burners. And then you're sitting there trying to figure out, well, how are you going to cook on 2 burners for 4 people, right? Or whatever it is. And then the other part about this, again, when we talked about that they're not clients, that they're tenants, it makes it a little worse, right? Just a tad bit worse overall. But outside of that, because we have to get that out of our system, all the negativity that we're impacted a little bit, what are some successes that you guys see or have seen thus far, either throughout the years or now with the Create Supportive Housing program, that you just want to highlight about how supportive housing does work?
Well, I'll leave it for Ms. Bailey to speak, because she's been with supportive housing. But for the time that I've been, I think one of the successes that I have seen is actually individuals say, I don't need you no more. I'm going out on my own now. Thank you for all the support, which is part of the supportive housing program, although is long-term, but you can also leave it at any time you feel you're ready to go into going out independent.
Yeah, well, that's a big step for them. So when they work their way to that, and I just want to talk about one client that I had. He came not dealing with his mental health, not addressing his substance abuse, and just being there and working with him. He went away to a program. He was able to get himself clean. He entered mental health. He went back to school. He got his bachelor's degree in social work, then went and got his master's degree, and from Hunter College, and then he got a job. He was a LMSW and had a good job, and he was able to move out on his own. And right before I left Harlem United, he got in contact with me, and he bought a house. So that's a success. He came from the shelter, from nothing, and now he's living life, and that's successful. But he always said he couldn't have did it without us, that we was with him every step of the way.
Well, that's exciting. Did you cry, Lisa, when he called
I
you?
always cry about things with my clients. When they pass away, when something bad is happening and I don't have any control.
And when something good is happening, you cry when
yeah.
it's something good too. Okay, I'm gonna call you. I don't want to call you a crybaby. Crying is good. We need to cry and laugh and feel, right? And it's unique because on our podcast, I try to highlight that a lot, right? Because I think people forget that we work with people, and out of all the jobs, I don't care. Somebody can argue me down on this. Out of all the jobs in the world, honestly, outside of motherhood, because I'm gonna be, outside of motherhood, working with people is tough, right? Yes. Every day, different attitude, different emotion, different feeling, different thought, different emotion, different feel, and it just goes in a repetitive cycle throughout the day. Especially when for our staff and Create, you're entering into people's spaces, which is different than shelter, right? Shelter, you are upstairs. So you come downstairs to my office, versus in Create, I come to your house. I knock on your door and you have to let me in, right? This is different than shelter. In shelter, I'm gonna walk in, whether you let me in or not. I'm a key into the room, right? But you got to come into their space. And when you go into somebody's space, you may carry some of whatever's in their home, right? Or you might feel whatever it is. And so a lot of the things that we here at HSNY try to push is to make sure that our staff have safe spaces, right? So I love the fact that y'all have an escape room, right? Where y'all can go in and flush out thoughts and be honest and be real, because I have the same model. So I don't know if Santiago stole it from me, Bailey, just so you know, I don't know. But I have the same concept, right? You want to come to my office, you can call, not my office, you can call me, you can scream, you can cuss, you can do whatever it is. And at the end of that conversation, we're going to figure out a solution in order for us to move forward, right?
Well, support is a very big factor. And so to feel supported by your upper management is very important. And you are very welcoming, so it's natural. Like if I have to call you, you know, you make time, and that's very important for us to do this job.
It's needed.
And I was just going to piggyback off what you said, Dr. Vera. It becomes personal to a point because, like you said, that now we're going into this people's homes. These are their homes. These are where they have keys, where they have lease, right? And you form this bond with them because now you're working with them on a more personal level because now you get to see their world, right? So now after, 1 year, 2 years, now kind of becomes a little bit personal how it kind of affects you, the outcome of their living situation, whatever it is that they want to succeed in and their goals, it becomes you.
Yeah.
And then we come back to mental health because then you're taking all of this in, right?
And it's also
you're
tough,
taking
right?
all of this in.
It's also tough. It's different. Let me not say tough, but challenging, right? Because in the human service field, we are taught to obviously have boundaries. You maintain professionalism all the time. However, like you said, sometimes it can be blurry. And so you need a supervisor who can recenter you. You need the supervisor to be centered in some way because, like you said, if I'm following this client for 2 years and they call me an emergency, a birthday, a death, or a flood, a fire, whatever, they're calling me good, bad, or indifferent. 2.5 years later, that might be my favorite tenant, right? Or that might be, all of these things. And then slightly lines may be blurred. And it's not intentional. I'm not saying this on a staff way for it to be intentional, but it requires in this supervisee model that somebody has to reground you, right? You need that level of accountability. So that's why, if Lisa, you get too close to somebody, then you're going to need Santiago to be like, hey, bring it in. Remember, you're the AD of the whole program, right? You can't, there's still a client-tenant professionalism boundary that needs to happen.
Yeah, and sometimes with supervision, you see that. So sometimes for me, I will change that tenant to another case manager because that case manager needs to step back.
And how they take it? How do you usually see that that's received?
Sometimes
at first
the tenants don't. They be like, they'll call and curse me out. Why did I change the case manager? And I just say, it had to be. But eventually they open up and, be receptive to the new case manager. Sometimes you got to switch things around.
Change is good.
Yes.
Change definitely is good. All right. Before we end this episode, talk to me about the criteria. Which programs do we have in Create? What's the referral process? So if anybody's listening, they can hear more about the criteria of the overall program.
So we have HASA, we have New York 3, and then we have COC HUD. For COC HUD, you have it's for single adults. All the units are in the Bronx, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. The good thing is these individuals get to view at least 2 or 3 before they get to pick one. So that's a good thing, right?
That is.
Whatever benefits them in the neighborhood. You have to be medically frail, and you have to have a serious SMI.
Okay. All right.
For New York 3, You have to have a mental health diagnosis. You have to have another medical diagnosis, and you have to be chronically homeless, which saying you have to be homeless for 365 days. Um, with HRA, it's a little different. You don't have to be chronically homeless, and you don't have to have a mental health diagnosis, but you need to be HIV positive for both programs. And you have to be referred through HASA, through the HASA system. You can't come to the office with a referral saying, I would like to live here. You will have to go to your HASA worker and do a NICHA application, and then that funnels the referral through the HASA system, and then we're able to pull that and interview clients.
And that
And
goes
just
the
so
same
the
thing for COC. It has to come through the HASA. And the good thing with the
okay,
COC for individuals that don't know is not share living, is actually a 1 bedroom apartment, which is pretty good for a
really
single
good.
individual.
It's really good.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's the
New York 3 are for single adults or a couple, but HRA, we house families. I mean, we have families in 4 bedroom apartments, so we house single people and families with children.
Nice. Just to reiterate, for those who are listening who didn't catch it, for some of the criteria we have there for the SMI, which is the severely mentally ill persons. And then I know y'all referred, you were saying that mostly people are referred from HASA. HASA is the division that is for persons living with HIV and AIDS. And so even though some of our programs have very similar characteristics, they have really great opportunities in order for people to declare a level of permanency and independence. And so we're excited about that. Lastly, I want to ask y'all, if y'all was to talk to an incoming human service worker entering into social services or supportive housing, like this is year one, maybe fresh out of school, maybe not, maybe it's a new career, whatever it is, what would be your word of advice to them in today's climate, today's clientele, today's tenants, today's landlords?
I would say one in regards to the clientele that we serve, if you don't have the passion, then this is not your field. Because we all know that nonprofit, sometimes the money is not there, right? So if you don't have a passion to do this type of work, then maybe you shouldn't be in it.
That's what I say. You don't go into this business for money. You go because you have a passion and you love people. And if that's not what you want to do, then this is definitely not the place for you. And this is not a 9 to 5 job. So if you a person that gets there at 9 and at 5 packing up to leave, this is not the
You
Or
can't work for
waiting by
me.
the time clock.
You
Right,
can't.
yeah.
You can't work for me. You can't
can't.
work for me. No, but and then also, people use that word passion. I want to say we don't say it loosely. Like we understand it because we have passion. But right, what if somebody's on the line and they're like trying to find the it? I'm like, how would you describe passion? Like how would you describe your drivers that get you to come to work every day? Like how would you describe those characteristics?
The ability to advocate for someone, right? Even if you don't want to get on that call or make calls to several individuals, whether it's for substance abuse, mental health, just finding the doctor for their medication, right? If you can't advocate for them, and again, if you can't go sometimes the extra mile, because when you supportive housing is a way for you also to transition into independency, and we don't want to do everything for them. So I don't want everybody to get the idea that that's what we do, right? That's what we're
Yeah.
there for, to do everything for them. But it's kind of to assist them to get to that place. And for you to get to that place, you kind of need to guide them and support them through that.
Well, what gets
Nice.
me up every day and which always did was I say to myself, today I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to be an asset to somebody. I'm going to change somebody's life.
Even if it's just that one person that you changed.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank the two of you for joining me today. I have to meet with my producer, but we might have to do a part two, later towards the summer when we talk about some more success stories throughout supportive housing, because again, as I said, supportive housing and affordable housing is a very big topic right now in New York City. And so I have an inkling that resources will be filtered into it and everything like that. I want to encourage all of our listeners who tuned in today, please like, share, subscribe. Let me say it again. Like, share, and subscribe. Repost. Do all the things. Please pass the word to everybody who's listening. And also support us, right? Support nonprofits like us. But since you're listening to me today, support HSNY. You can donate all levels of advocacy and always stay connected. And this podcast is now on Spotify. Somebody get excited, right? No, you're not excited with me? Okay, get excited. We're now on Spotify, so we're excited about the growth and everything that's going on. So one more time, thank you so much, Santiago. Thank you so much, Bailey.
Thank you for
cutting
having
up with
us
me.
here.
Y'all could breathe.
Thank you
Y'all
for
could
having
breathe now. Everybody could breathe. They didn't know why they was coming in the office today.
I'm more than sure we'll be back because support HSNY is expanding supportive housing. So
That is
this
right.
will not
That is
be,
right.
this is just one of many podcasts that we will probably be in.
And we ready.
Okay, so by the
Santiago.
next
We
one,
ready,
y'all
we
gonna
ready.
cut up. Y'all gonna cut up with me again. All right. Again, thank everybody for listening. Just a reminder that supportive housing is about dignity, stability, and creating paths forward. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, we are all just one step away.